All right, so today we're going to talk about our case study, the first one. So if you want to follow, if you're where you can follow along with me. If you're not, I will narrate as we go. I think we've got a couple people on the phone. So Zoom session 1 case study on your menu in Blackboard. I hope you can see that on your screen. There are 2 documents there. The case study itself is what you need to do. The instructor notes is what we're looking for. And as I said, I'll only do the notes the first time. After that, you have to figure out what needs to be done. So let's look at the case study itself. I'll open that up. Okay. Here we go. Measuring organizational effectiveness in the nonprofit sector. All right. Let's move that over so I can get there. All right, so it gives you a scenario. I won't read it to you. And it lays out for you the actual problem. Luke gave him the problem. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble this morning. There we go. Sure. Internet Explorer is not responding. That's not really good. There we go. There it goes. But we met for lunch. He explained economic downturn, and he goes on to lay out. He agreed to work on the project. Became acquainted with the main issues of the problem. And so he goes on to speak to effectiveness and all those things, and then and continued to lay out the problem, and then he started gathering information or data. Anyway, he lays out the problem for you. My screen's not working very well this morning for some reason. That's a Blackboard issue, but there we go. Maybe that'll help. Okay. Nonprofit sectors have a tendency to be over idealistic. They think we should focus on doing quality work, regardless of how the numbers play out. And so he goes on to lay out that problem and the issues that they have. And it's quite a long and involved case here. So let's kind of cut to the chase this morning. Let's get to the notes in terms of what we're looking for with this particular one. So if I come back over here, you can read all this. Let me see if I can come back down here. Case study, section 1. So there are the discussion questions. Pretty much, you'll address each of those discussion questions. You saw those, and so that's your task, is to address each of those discussion questions. So you'll need to either be a whole group, or it'd probably be better if we broke you into 2 or 3 smaller groups, probably 2 smaller groups. And then here's what we'll be looking for. If I can get the instructor notes to open. Unfortunately, Blackboard won't let me open these beforehand. Gardner Webb's not responding. Blackboard's up and down this morning. Let's see if we can get it to come back up. As you can see, it's wonky today. They work on it on the weekends, not remembering that we have weekend classes. So come back, Blackboard.
Dr. Lamb?
Yes.
The previous case studies that we've done, we have used pretty much a standard format where we take a look at an analysis of what the actual problem is.
Right.
In many of the previous case studies, what we've seen is that, you know, the leadership thinks there's one thing going on, and we're looking at a bigger picture. This case study is obviously a little bit different than that, I think. But what we've done is we've written it up sort of in parts, like an introduction to this, to, you know, just an overview of what this case is, and then what we see as the problem, and then if we see other problems that aren't necessarily written directly into the case, we mention those, and then what we do is give our recommendations. And I see especially in discussion question 1, you know, what 5 recommendations would you develop for your report? And we sort of write it up in almost like a narrative, and we also have been challenged to try and come up with a solution or an angle that might be sort of outside of the box.
Right. Yeah.
Is that sort of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay.
That I'm glad you outlined it. That's pretty much what the instructor notes. I don't know that I'm going to get to those this morning, since Blackboard continues to go crash on me. It's been doing this all morning. I was hoping it would be better by the time that we got to this, but yes, Elizabeth just kind of laid out. It'll be the same format you've been using. It gives you discussion questions, and you write a narrative response, keeping an eye to the difference between the stated objectives of the client versus your perspective of the issues and problems, and that's the crux of doing organizational analysis. I've probably mentioned this to you before, but the biggest problem in doing program evaluation is most organizations have a solution and they're hunting a problem. They have a solution that they want to use, whether it fits the problem or not. And so they're usually somewhat misguided about what it's going to take to address the issue. And your job is to address, many times, to address the effectiveness of their proposed solution or what they think the problem is, and present to them what the real problem is and what the real solution would be. Because too many times, they're just a solution hunting the problem. And they've done it backwards. Here's what we ought to do, and now let's go out and find some data that supports what we think we ought to do. That's exactly what case studies are for, is to get you to understand that when you're doing organizational analysis, when you're doing program evaluation, that what the client thinks the problem is many times is not the problem. And your first task is to convince them what the real problem is. And so you have to have the data, because they'll have anecdotal information as to what the problem is. That may or may not be accurate. Most of the times it's not accurate. It's your job to provide data that says this is your real problem, and these are some of the options or some solutions according to the research that might fit the actual problem that you have. they've generally identified the problem through anecdotal information, experience. We've done that before. And so you're taking a more systematic approach driven by data to not only identify the problem, but identify possible solutions. And see that, I know that sounds nitpicky, but that's the crux of the issue. Most of the solutions that they offer don't work because they don't actually address the problem. If we went back to Arger's double loop theory, the first thing we have to do is make sure that whatever treatment program or fix that we enact to try to fix the problem actually addresses that problem. And so there's two issues here. One is identify their problem, and then two, identify solutions that actually address the problem that are correlated to that problem. I always use the 2-gallon method. The problem is that Elizabeth can't fly. So we take Elizabeth up on the roof and we give her a gallon of water to drink, and we throw her off the roof and she hits the ground splat. And so we go get Elizabeth and we dust her off, and we take her back up on the roof and we give her 2 gallons of water this time and make her drink them. We throw her off again, not ever understanding that the problem of Elizabeth not flying is never addressed by water. There's no correlation between drinking water and flying. I know that's kind of idiotic, but that's exactly what organizations tend to do. They find solutions that don't fit the problem, and then they just do them more and more. That's Arger's double loop theory. You got to make sure that whatever you have in terms of a solution actually addresses that problem, and you do that through research, professional research, refereed journal articles of trials or programs or treatments that have worked just for similar problems in the past, and rather than just anecdotal things. And that's what we're trying to teach you to do here, is be more systematic in your approach. And so Elizabeth's exactly right. You've got to identify the problem, what they think the problem is, but you really have to identify what the actual problem is, address their concerns, and then find a real solution. So if instructor notes will come up and not crash on me here, we'll look at, from the instructor point of view, what we would be looking for. So if this will come up, or Blackboard's still not working for me. Just trying.
Is it possible also for us to, I guess, sort of, embed the answers to these questions into that model of, perceived problem, actual problem, suggested plan for making changes or addressing the problem, as well as this sort of, maybe out of the box? Or do you want us, a 1 through 5 listing of answers?
Well, I like a combination there. I know that's
okay.
I like a combination of narrative and bullets. Remember, I'm an organizational person. We like graphic organizers and bullets. You're going to need to write a narrative explanation, but at some point, when you get to the heart of the matter, I like just a listing, 1, 2, 3, or bullets. You got to do these things.
All right, that actually works for us, because what we've done in the past is created a, sort of like a PowerPoint that uses bullets, and then we've taken our bullets and turned that into a narrative, which we've then turned into Blackboard. And so we could do, we could turn in both the PowerPoint and the narrative, or however you want.
That's the plan, is that you will have a narrative.
Okay.
But
so
you will have
so
a
that's
PowerPoint.
pretty much how we've done all of the case studies up to this point.
Yes, I want to follow that same. Jeff had shared that with me, and so that was my plan, is that we'd follow the same, that you'll have a narrative, but your PowerPoint will be of the bullets. So I said,
excellent.
It's mixed. You have the narrative and your bullets.
Okay.
So yes, and so here are the points of emphasis for this: that measuring organizational effectiveness in nonprofit is complicated. It's different than measuring effectiveness in a for-profit sector, because you're not making, at the end of the month, you don't look and see how much money is in your account. Tension is between the ones that want to be more business-like, and this is my point that I was making. more business-like and develop quantifiable metrics to measure rather than just using anecdotal. We talk to people and this is what they think. No, we want you to develop, quantifiable metrics. This is what would be considered success. Again, that's always the battle when you're doing program evaluation. You have the people who, because they've been there a long time, think they know. They don't have any data to back up their suspicions or their analysis or what they think the plan ought to be to fix their problems. And they don't, and they think that experience trumps data. Now, if you've been reading, I hope you've been reading the Ayers book, Super Crunchers, and he devotes a whole chapter to this. The battle between the super crunchers, the number people, and the experiential or experts with experience in the field, and that's exactly what you're battling here. You have people inside the organization who may be long-termers who think they know what the problems are from anecdotal and experience, and you've got to come in and convince them that we need quantifiable metrics, we need measures to not only identify our problem, but to find solutions to those problems. And you can't just say, well, again, most of the experiential people have an idea in mind how to fix it, but it's just something that they know or they're comfortable with. It's a problem hunting a solution. Oh, if we'll do this, well, that solution, that treatment program or fix may not exactly fit what we're doing here. And so it's the job of the statistician to go in and actually look at the data and develop metrics, measures of this is how we're going to measure whether we're effective or not. And when we put the program, treatment, or fix in, that we're going to use that same metric to determine whether it's effective or not, or successful. When I speak of programs, treatments, or fixes, I've mentioned this before, I kind of quantify solutions or activities to address a problem in three categories: programs, treatments, and fixes. Program is generally organization-wide. It's something that everybody in the organization does. A treatment is specific to a particular part or group within the organization, a department. It's not holistic, it's just for a subgroup. A fix is a change in management routine. So you have programs, treatments, and fixes. And you can have one of those or a combination of those in your solutions to the problems. But remember, programs generally affect the whole organization. Treatments affect some subset of the organization, and fixes are a change in management routine that affect the entire organization. So communication plays an important role in the way organizational effectiveness is developed and sustained, especially related to interactions with key stakeholders. The concept of social construction is an important part of understanding organizational effectiveness in the nonprofit sector. So exercises and activities, these kinds of things will guide you. These would be the kind of activities that we would do that might come out of this. Now, the question is, for me to you, is have you been doing the exercises and activities, or have you just been developing your plans? I prefer that you just develop your plans. And again, it's a two-part plan to address these case studies. One is a narrative that outlines the problem and your proposed solution. And then the PowerPoint is a bullet by bullet of what you're going to do.
We have not done or even actually seen any of these instructor notes before.
That's what I suspected that. That's why I said my plan was not for you to do these activities. My plan was but they will help guide you in your presentations, but you are not to have to do those actual activities. Again, a narrative, a PowerPoint. Narrative outlines the problem and works through their problems, possible solutions, the research you did to find the solutions. The the PowerPoint is the solution. It's a bullet by bullet, prescriptive. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so everybody knows what.
Hey, Dr. Lamb.
Yes.
Question: Can we send you like maybe an example of one of the case studies that we did by PowerPoint, just to make sure we're giving you what you need and what you want?
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that would be excellent. What I'm trying to walk the fine line here between giving you enough instructions to get you going and not telling you what to do. I've got to let you find the problems and the solutions. I mentioned to tell you the secret in this one this morning, but I'm not supposed to. You're supposed to find the secret in this one, and there'll be an aha moment that comes with this one that I really like. You'll get it though. I feel certain that you'll get it. Yes, I will review your PowerPoint, but I'm sure it's what I'm looking for. We follow a similar format again. The PowerPoint is basically the program, treatment, or fix that you are recommended, but laid out in a logical sequence. First thing we'll do is this, second thing we'll do is this, third thing we'll do is that, and so forth. It's kind of like an action plan. Y'all have probably not ever seen the graphic organizer action plan that I developed for use in the MELS program that we use on all action marketing and process plans. It starts with the specific activity, what we're going to do. The second part is when we're going to do it. Third part is the persons who are going to be responsible. We put their names down. If we just put staff down, I never need staff to do a damn thing. Staff's lazy. We want people's names. And then we put down where we're going to get the resources to do this, and the resources must be in hand. It can't be, well, we're going to apply for a grant. Oh no, that's not a plan. That's hope. We've got money in hand to do it, and then we go to formative assessment. How formative assessment is not measuring the outcome. Formative assessment is measuring the input, where we look at are the adults following the plan with fidelity, or are they just implementing parts that they like and not others? So formative assessment is an assessment of the adults. Are they implementing the plan with fidelity? Then we have summative assessment to see if the plan actually worked or not. We measure the outcomes. Formative assessment measures the input. Summative assessment measures the output. And then we have our goal. What's our goal? What would be success? And then our indicator of success is behind our goal. Our goal was to move, customer satisfaction 20%. That might be a little bit ambitious. What would be an actual indicator of success? Well, one standard deviation, which would mean if we moved customer satisfaction 5 points, that would be successful. Our goal is 20. We may not get there the first time out with whatever we're doing. If in a nonprofit we're trying to improve customer satisfaction, for example, but we have to set a more realistic indicator of success. We always want people to set their goals high, but what we don't want is for that goal to actually hinder our progress to change and improvement because we didn't achieve the goal the first time out. So goal may be 20% improvement in surveyed stakeholders, but the indicator of success is going to be more like 5 because that's one standard deviation. If you get more than 2 standard deviations, something's wrong. And so I've seen a lot of organizations set their goal at 40% or whatever, and we did a quick calculation. That'd be like 4 standard deviations. Like, they're not going to get that. They're going to be disappointed. The people who did all this hard work are going to be told, well, you didn't achieve your goal. And then they're not going to be receptive the next time, when phase 2 comes around of the plan, where we're trying, we still haven't achieved our goal and we're going to do something different. So we always set an indicator of success that's realistic. and it's based on standard deviation. You've been learning about that. And so if the standard, we generally set an indicator of success at a minimum of 1 standard deviation improvement, is generally what we do. So that's kind of how an action plan works. And so in your bullets, I would expect to see those kinds of things. You know, here's what we're going to do. Here's how, this is when we're going to do it. This is the person's responsible for doing it. Here's the resources we've set aside for them to do it. This is how we're going to measure fidelity, you know, the input from the actual staff. Here's how we're going to measure the output. That's where those metrics come in. This is sometimes you have to create those in organizations. This is what success would be. You know, this is what our goal is, and this is our indicator of success. Does that make sense? That's a rational scientific method to reporting or planning actual programs, treatments, and fixes. It's lockstep. I understand that. It's not very creative, but it's easy to follow. So hopefully your PowerPoints have had elements of those in them in the past, but those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for. I will actually, on this site, I will post a graphic organizer that has that in it, so that you can see that. I'll do that as soon as I get off the air with you this morning. I will post that graphic organizer. But I would like to see your PowerPoint that you've done in the past. Okay, now, do we need to set your groups up, or do you already have your groups set up?
Set them up.
You want to set them up? All right. Okay, give me just 1 minute. Okay. I will, along with the graphic organizer, I will post these groups under this Zoom case study. I will post the there you go. I will post the groups, and so I'm going to do it. Danny, are you with us?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm with you by phone, and this is the only place I can get a connection, so I had to call in. I'm gonna actually had to sit in the gym where they're wrestling, so I'm gonna put it on mute because I don't want y'all to hear all this.
All right. Well, welcome. Danny, you're there?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
Hope you're better.
I'm doing. I'm getting there.
Good.
I hope you're doing better, brother.
Oh yeah, I am hanging in there.
Good, good, good. All right. So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do this alphabetically. I'm going to create 2 groups. For the first group, we're going to have 4 in the first group. So the first group will be Elizabeth, Kate, Alice, Patricia, and Danny. Group 2 is Lyndon, Travis, and Brenda. So that will be your 2 groups for this program. For this, now you'll need to communicate with one another and basically set up like a little PLC with norms and values. When you're going to meet, how you're going to meet. Are you going to do it by email, or are you going to do it by Zoom? All those things are left up to you, but those will be your groups. Now, this is an example of being able to work interdependently in terms of you work independently, but inside the group. You don't have to actually sit as a group and do this. You can assign tasks and then come back together. That's up to you, how you go about doing that, how you set your work pattern. But it's due in 2 weeks when we get together. I will post the address of where we're going to be meeting. I'll put that on the course overview page here on Blackboard. I will put the address of where you to come to in 2 weeks. I'll be back in touch with you before then. Looking at the schedule, so today we're doing the case study Zoom session. Next week, I don't have anything on your schedule for you to do except to continue reading Super Cruncher so that you can complete this case study in the next 2 weeks. We will meet here at my place on Saturday, February the 18th, and Sunday, February the 19th. And so you've got 2 weeks to work on this, and I didn't have any other assigned tasks for that reason. Look at the instructor notes to kind of give you a guide as to what to do. I will put a graphic organizer up. You don't have to use the graphic organizer, but if you don't want to, but it gives you an example of kind of what I'm looking for in terms of when you suggest in a program evaluation, when you suggest an activity, a program, treatment, or fix to address the problem, you need to take into account all those points in that graphic organizer. Those are the things that, you can have the best plans in the world, but if you don't assign the task to somebody, or if you don't have the resources to do it, or if you don't set the measurement up front, what's known as a priori in statistics, if you don't set up those up front, then if you run the program, and even if you do run it and you get data from running the program, you don't know whether you were successful or not. And you certainly don't want to set unrealistic goals. You set a high goal, but your indicator of success is a function of that goal. It's usually one standard deviation. So that will kind of guide you into what your PowerPoint presentation ought to contain inside of it. It's a rational model, and it's a practitioner's model for people who are really doing these things of what would be important. This is not a theoretical exercise. It has to be converted. The theoretical has to be converted to the practical. We're going to do these, and these things, and that's what the graphic organizer will help you maintain that focus on the practical. All right. So my job, I have set the 2 groups. I will put that under the case study. Also under the case study, I will put the graphic organizer to guide you. Remember, that guides your PowerPoint presentation, not so much your narrative presentation, but your PowerPoint. This is due when we meet in 2 weeks. I have it on the schedule on Saturday, February 18th. The last session of the day from 2:45 to 4 o'clock. Got 2 presentations, so your presentation should last no more than 45 minutes. That's your time constraints, somewhere between 30 and 45. It'll take that long to adequately cover this material. So I'm looking for a presentation of your narrative and your PowerPoint to be between 30 and 45 minutes long. Have I set the parameters in a reasonable manner? Does this follow similarly what you've done in the past?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I haven't shocked anybody with the expectations today. Well, that's always good. All right. What do you, any feedback on anything that you've done so far? Your discussion boards, the tests, are the tests representative of the material that we're covering?
Dr. Lamb.
Yes.
One question. I just want to go back. You did mention the graphic organizer, correct?
Yes.
You said you were going to put an example of what you want in regards to a graphic organizer? Online?
The actual, you don't have to use it in a graphic organizer form. Let me show you what it looks like. Let me show you what I'm talking about. That's a good question. Let me see if it'll let me do this without blowing Blackboard up this morning. Blackboard is really delicate this morning. It's not liking to work. Come on. Here it comes. Slowly but surely. All right. This group, this is a master's group of mine, and they were just a 2-person group, but they were asked to do an organizational analysis of a public school based on teacher working conditions survey information, and to enact an action plan to address the culture of the building. Very much like what you're being asked to do. So let me get to the right part and then I'll share the screen with you. And so they had to propose a narrative solution, but they also had to graph it out in a graphic organizer as to what activities and what they were going to do. And so I'm getting there. Here we go. All right, so this one, okay, new share. You can do it. There we go. So I have them graph it out this way. Yours doesn't have to look like this, but these are the things that I want: specific activity, timeline, the person responsible, resources needed, formative assessment method, summative assessment method, the goal and the indicator of success. Okay, so this specific activity is Youth Alliance or other bullying program to train students and staff and parents how to stop bullying. Got the actual dates that they're going to do it, who the person, P. Douglas is the person going to do it. Money's in the bank already to pay for this. Again, survey results will tell us if we've moved it. What our goal is, you know, what our summative assessment is going to be. We're going to look at a lower percentage on as measured by our reduction of suspensions. We're going to look at our suspension numbers, and then our goal is obviously to reduce them completely. But our indicator of success is if we've lowered them. I think this one actually was 10% was their indicator of success. So you can kind of see how the process works. Now, again, your PowerPoint doesn't have to look like this, but these are the things that I'm looking for in your PowerPoint. What are you going to do? When are you going to do it? Who's going to do it? Where's the money going to come from? How are you going to measure if the adults are doing this with fidelity? What would be, you know, how are you going to measure the outcome? What the overall goal is, and what your on the way goal, your indicator of success. That's what I have my students do when they're looking at organizational culture in public schools. I have them be very specific and map it out like this. I know it's not very creative. The creativity comes in your narrative. But when you're actually putting a plan in place, it needs to have these components in your actual action plan. And that's what this is. It's a action plan summary. It summarizes the narrative, what you've told us in the narrative, and puts it in a who, what, where, when, and why. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right.
Yep.
You know, it makes it very clear, and you understand your expectations. Just like my master students love these. They know exactly what's expected of them, and they could actually, in effect, actually could sit down and run this plan. We don't require them to run the plan, but they have to have the plan ready to launch. And if they get permission, some of them actually run these plans. If they get permission from their school leadership team, some of them actually run these plans because we have them plan them out that specifically. And that's what we're looking for from this case study, is the same kind of thing. Is we could actually sit down and run your plan. Because, you know, we're preparing you for your consultancy project where you will actually sit down and run the plan.
This is my plan.
Okay.
Dr. Lamb,
Yes.
this is Kate Alice. You mentioned in our consultancy project presentations that each slide should have no more than 30 words.
That's correct.
That will be the same here, correct?
Yes. The narrative is kind of the explanation, and you can share the narrative in any way. But PowerPoints are bullets. They're boom. They're point by point. You know, if you were doing your doctoral dissertation proposal and/or defense, we would do the same thing. The biggest mistake that people make using PowerPoints to communicate is they try to communicate multiple ideas and/or too much information per slide. And so at Gardner-Webb, we've adopted our standardized policy is one idea per slide, no more than 30 words per slide. Now, when I work with my doctoral students on their proposal defense, they can't have more than 20 words per slide. If you can't convey your message that you're in your proposal in 20 words, then you're unclear. You don't know what you're doing. You should, this is big idea stuff. You write all of your rationales and all your ideas into your narrative. When we get to PowerPoint, this is stuff we're going to do. It's more direct. Boom, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Again, one idea per slide, no more than 30 words per slide in your PowerPoint presentation. And again, you may not just list it like I've got it listed here, and you may not call it specific activity, but it should include these elements. In any plan should include these elements. It will guide you as well as the people that you're working with. Everybody knows the deal up front. There's nothing hidden in this. There's not going to be questions at the water cooler. I wonder where he's getting the money to do this, or where she's getting the money, or do they really expect us to make a 30% increase or all at one time? No. Everybody knows up front the parameters of the entire project from the very beginning. Everybody knows who, what, where, when, and why. This is how organizations should work. If you want effective communication within the organization, you have to tell everything. You can't hold secrets. And that's one of the goals of this activity is organizational communication. You need to communicate to them what's important and what we're doing. Obviously, this takes care of that for you. I've used this graphic organizer for 7 years to great success with master students. I've used something similar with doctoral students in the past. Not quite this one, but one similar to this. But I use this one every day on an ongoing basis when we're working on organizational improvement. All right, next question. No questions? So I didn't do a very good job. It was so unclear you don't even have any questions. Wow. Not a good start to the day. All right. I'm going to turn you loose. As I said, look back on Blackboard. Under Zoom, over here on your menu, under Zoom session 1 case study, I'll put a copy of the graphic organizer, and I'll put the groups there so that you can go back in those. And so make sure you read this thing. Make sure you got 2 weeks. You know who your groups are. Y'all get together, communicate between one another. And I expect an excellent project when I see you at my place. Again, in 2 weeks. I will put the address here under course overview is where I will put that. It will be, if this will come up, right here where it says meet your instructor, I will put the address in that box. Any questions for the good of the group? All right, I told you to take an hour less. I made it in 51 minutes. That's an all-time record for me. Y'all have a good weekend. I'll see you live in 2 weeks.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb.
Okay, good weekend.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay, y'all have a great
you.
weekend.
Thank you.
You too.